Okay, so this video is going to be a little different because I want to incorporate into my channel my spirituality and to actually give a authentic experience of what an actual spiritual awakening can look like or can feel like or can be. So I wanted to provide my experience of what woke me up, because I feel it is very different, in my opinion, from how certain people I've talked to. I feel like I've had a lot of spiritual awakenings, so I can't say like, oh, I had this one mind-blowing spiritual awakening and then suddenly for me, knowing about human design didn't like catapult me into suddenly living the best life ever. My awakenings have often been from loss and struggle. This is where I've gained a lot of my epiphanies, where I've had a lot of I've noticed like power moments that happen in my life. Oftentimes then it catapults into like these major changes, these major opportunities. And at the time, I'm like, what the fuck, bro? Like, that wasn't cool. I've noticed that when I have been open to those changes and those tower moments, it has been easier. So when I do sense a tower moment of everything falling away and falling apart and just like complete self-destruction, I just let it fall, because my experience has been that when I try to resist, it just makes it fucking worse. So I've always been, as a child, I've always been interested in like the other realm and like spirituality. And like when I was in middle school, I would literally hide witchcraft books from the library, because one time my dad discovered I got like witchcraft books, and he basically said like, if you put as much knowledge into like actual science and actual math as you put into this fucking garbage, then you would be a fucking rocket scientist. It's not what I like. And so I basically hid like I wanted to know about witchcraft and all that stuff, because and my parents, they said they were like religious and we would go to church, but like they weren't really religious. Like no one, we'd have the Bible, we'd go to youth group, but it's like no one, it was like a facade. It was like a mass. My mom didn't even fucking know the Bible. She didn't read the Bible. It was like a it was mask. Yeah, I've always, even as a child, I was interested in the imaginative and thinking about the dead. And to get a perspective on my childhood, I was found on the streets at age 3 in Russia, and then I went through orphanages, and then I was adopted when I was 8. But there was a period when I did think about death and dying and the other side, and don't think that kids don't think about that shit, especially if they've gone through hard shit that they shouldn't be going through. Don't think for a second that they haven't considered wanting to die or not wanting to exist, or wondering like, why am I here when like this isn't the life. So I already like came onto this earth with hardship and struggle, and I, even as a child, I remember, not like I was like talking like psychic abilities, but I definitely did prefer spending time with animals more than people, and I would talk to dogs. Like I would read, when I was adopted, I would just read my dog books, and I would play like hide and seek, and my parents like literally didn't know what I did. But anyway, on my spiritual awakening, I mean, so like I went throughout my years, I went in and out of taking an interest, but I never really fully delved into it. And then back in like what, 2018, 2019, yeah, I think it was 2018, this was when I first started. I was dating this guy and he had kids, and my parents were being really controlling, and I thought I was the problem because I already had anxiety, but then the whole situation brought up even more anxiety because my parents were like, oh, we want to be like grandparents, and even if these kids aren't your kids, it doesn't matter, like we're gonna throw you under the bus for these kids even when we don't give a shit about you. So basically what happened was I went to therapy thinking the therapist would be like, yeah, you have a lot of problems, here's some anxiety medication, but actually the therapist was like, relationship with your mother, what's that about? And I guess that was like very Freudian. It also brought up like boundaries, and then he was like, yeah, you probably need to practice boundaries. But then I never went back to the next session, but it did. Then I started researching like, what the fuck are boundaries? And that catapulted so much shit. So like what that created was like, I learned about boundaries. I started setting boundaries. I didn't really know about, I feel like I didn't like do it correctly because the therapist was like, you need to set boundaries, but he never like created a roadmap of like how to do it. Somehow, I don't know how, but that like catapulted. I was also like engaged with this guy. Like catapulted me cutting off from my parents, from my entire family, because suddenly when I set boundaries, like everyone literally blackmailed me into making me feel like I was the bad person for setting boundaries. And it's like, so that was fun, but what that created was the yes and no, because then I realized the boundaries was actually a trigger for me realizing like, oh shit, I'm exhausted by this energy, I'm exhausted of performing, and literally my anxiety was a trigger of being like, yeah, we're gonna backtrack. I say there were several like awakenings, because I didn't just have like one awakening and then it just like catapulted into success. There were just like major shifts that was happening. The relationship kind of just like fell through because I was just like, well, I don't even know if I want to get married. I moved out of the guy's house or place. Somehow that just led me to learning about human design. That started me realizing like, what relationships have I been putting myself in and faking it to make it, but I really have no energy to even keep that relationship going. And so then for me personally, that's where the anxiety started coming up. My body literally creating anxiety to be like, you're not listening to us, so we're literally going to make this a living hell for you. And I still like have anxiety, but I'm much better at listening to my sacral yeses and nos, to knowing when I'm like, okay, this is what I have to do, but I'm only going to do this much, or backtrack. That whole thing of learning about boundaries kind of forced me to like being like, oh, I can say no to things, I can say no to people. And what that created was then it created triggering other people, literally family members, my grandparents, my grandma, literally blackmailing me and trying to make me feel bad. Like literally my brother was like, drink so much alcohol because of you, or drink so much wine because of you. And it's like, literally she's always been drinking wine, like, bro, don't be projecting. But I was like in a bad place, and that's what I needed. I needed to just like cut out all people to really connect to what is true for me. I don't know if like that in itself was like an awakening. Like the card judgment, like that's been like judgment day, like literally just like complete debilitation of everything that's built. And then there's that like aha moment, that enlightening. You following your human design might come out as like complete debilitation. Especially if you haven't been listening to your sacral. When I was having this anxiety before I went to therapy, I was really having a tough time. Like my anxiety was like debilitating. But basically I started doing meditation and to help with my anxiety, and what happened is it opened my third eye and I started having visions. Like my first vision was this red flower opening. Blooming is connected to the feminine energy, and sacral is very feminine. It's connected to the uterus, it's connected to the womb. Meditation helps with your anxiety, and people keep saying like, meditate to help with your anxiety, meditate to help with your anxiety. And I was like, okay, whatever, I'll try it out. I don't see how it's going to work. And I did it, and I literally had a vision. I wasn't even trying to open my third eye or do anything. I was just like trying to ease my anxiety to be livable, to exist. And I literally unintentionally I opened like a freaking portal, and this is where I was like, it freaked me out. Actually, it literally freaked me out. I didn't like it because I was like, oh my god, am I going crazy? Am I going insane? Like, I never have seen visions while meditating, so it just freaked me out too much. And that was kind of the start, because I started taking an interest in tarot and oracle cards, because my frustration with human design, it was that people were telling me like, oh, once I start living my design, once I start following my strategy and authority, things will just be aligned. And the thing that people don't tell you is that alignment isn't exactly what you think it is. It isn't like when we think of alignment, we think of like, oh, everything goes perfectly well, everything goes perfectly together. But when I had the little stints of actually living in alignment, of following my yeses and nos, there would often be stints of just like everything falling away, and I just didn't like it. So like I'd go back to like the not self. I was like, why the fuck is everything like falling away when people are telling me this will bring me more in alignment of what I meant for, or what is easy for me? And the fact of the matter is, that's not the case. I know some people, when they have practiced their human design experiment or whatever they want to call it, or they have been able to easily go into following the strategy and authority with maybe a little resistance, but not much. And so maybe I just had a lot of not self resistance. But also I wanted to make a video about like actual spiritual awakening, in the sense of like opening yourself to your spiritual skills, because that's what they are. The psychic abilities are skills that we develop. Everyone has the potential to have them, but we put them up so high like they're these abilities or these gifts, but they're not, because literally everyone can do them. And obviously this came to me as literally me just trying to make my anxiety go away, and somehow I opened my third eye. And at first it like terrified me, and I literally, when I first saw the image of the red flower, I opened my eyes immediately, and I was just like, no, we're not doing that. Like, I already was starting to think I wasn't going crazy, because my family members are telling me I'm crazy, because I'm trying to, like, I don't know, be a sane person among these people that are literally living in their not self, and like totally okay with putting me under the rug for the greater good. You following your human design, your strategy and authority, literally be the most painful thing, the hardest thing you have ever done, especially if you have been so conditioned that following your authentic expression of self in the world is like literally going against the grain of everything you have been taught.